गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गणेश शॉर्ट। गणेश शॉर्ट में आप सबका स्वागत है। Today's question is, can the PLA fight? Why did I pick this topic up? We all know that PLA is going to be our foremost adversary. They've helped Pakistan and so many other things. We also know that PLA has been one organization which has been which has expanded manifold over a period of time. And we'll go along and we'll get the figures. And we've had a few run-ins with them. But most importantly, you see the performance of the PLA, its equipment, the Chinese, whatever you call it, during Op Sindoor, and also during, the Iran-Israel war. A picture emerges. And the question really comes to my mind is, can the PLA fight? And if it does fight, how will it do so? These are the questions which will agitate every army officer's mind in the Indian Armed Forces. Very logical. But if you analyze what the PLA is, then you know how well they will fight. So that is what we're going to do. And for this, I picked up a RAND analysis, right, which came out in January. I said this in the morning. The analysis is largely theoretical. When I say theoretical, it has some practical bias basis, or right, a researched bias. But when I read it in January, I didn't find that much meaning to what this analyst was saying. So then I read it again about a week back, and a lot of things popped out of that analysis based on what we experienced during Op Sindoor and various other operations. Generally, the way PLA has gone about doing things, and in Israel or Rising Lion. That's when I said, let me do this when it's still fresh in my mind. Right? So here we go. Okay. Now, before I go further, I had a lot of questions from a lot of people and a lot of things that, look, we are not getting notifications for, your videos. And in the morning, I did put it up, and I just want to reiterate. Look, this is just this 1 minute. This is P Guru's channel. You go to channel, any channel for that matter, and in this corner, you find the subscribe button, right here, subscribe. This is where you subscribe. Most of us, when we subscribe, we just subscribe and we are happy if it is subscribed and the thing comes like this with a blank kind of a subscription. If you want notifications, you have to subscribe in a manner this bell turns black. That means you subscribe for all. There are 3 choices you have. You have to subscribe for all. If you subscribe for all, you will get notifications. Just try it once again. If you still don't get notifications, please do let me know. I will take it up with YouTube again, and I'll do it as fast as tomorrow. Right? And and if you want to be sure, unsubscribe from the channel once and resubscribe. So it's as simple as that. Okay. Now here we go. We'll go with this. What is this thing I'm talking of? This is the report. This came in January 2025. It's by a person called Timothy Heath, who's done excellent analysis of the PLA. He's an expert. I mean, I must grant it to him. And we must also grant it that the Americans, who are far more involved with the Chinese, have carried out extensive study about the PLA, unlike us. And I rely a lot. In fact, it's the Japanese have carried out a lot of analysis, and the you know Americans have holistically. A lot of others like Taiwanese, Filipinos, and all, they are in contact with the PLA, but they have not analyzed them well. So I go a lot into their analysis. Of course, we have to see which part of that analysis is, their own thinking and their own way of analyzing and what suits us. But this is a masterpiece. I'd recommend everyone, if you're interested, read it. It's a long one, it's about 15-20 pages, but worth it. What are the key takeaways of this, whole analysis? He puts out half a dozen key takeaways in the beginning. He says the PLA is focused on upholding the Chinese Communist Party. That's the first key takeaway. And it's so true. What's happening in China today? The PLA is trying to uphold the Chinese Communist Party. That's what Zhang Yujia is doing. Okay? This is the crux of understanding the PLA. China's military modernization is the first and foremost to bolster the appeal and credibility of the CCP rule. This is something which we need to understand. So all what they're doing fundamentally comes to the fact that the CCP rule has to be sustained. Okay. So if the CCP rule is at any point of time under threat, or if there is a bit of a shake in the CCP structure, the PLA steps in. Precisely what's happening now. Then, of course, he says, historically, priority is political loyalty and the enforcement of the CCP rule over combat readiness. Whether they're combat ready or not is not the issue, but loyalty and enforcement of CCP is the thing. And that's what's happening. That is why so many of their generals are getting sacked. So many generals getting sacked does not contribute to combat readiness, but it does indicate political loyalty. Then further he says, as China declines, PLA's mission of upholding CCP rule will increase and improving combat readiness will decrease. This is something it is playing out. How it will manifest on ground is something which we have to see. China will face strong incentives to favor indirect methods of fighting over large-scale conventional war. How true? This story is absolutely fits the bill now in Opsindur and in Rising Lion. In Opsindur, they they assisted Pakistan to fight with us rather than getting into a fight with us at all. The collusive support was never, direct one between India and China. It was always through Pakistan. Same thing. They let USA fight Iran, but they didn't get involved in it. Indirect methods. That's important. Very important when you are handling PLA. And then lastly, he says, this is a key takeaways. We'll go one by one after this. Defense planning should consider a threat framework that elevates a broader array of threats alongside the remote possibility of conventional war with China. Says remote possibility of conventional war with China. So the threats will be broader, different, but conventional war with China is remote as per him. You've seen it. These 6 takeaways itself tell you what China is all about and how it has behaved. The important facts. China's ability to translate material power into combat power is unproven. In fact, he says it's unproven. I feel it is disproven. You see the way their equipment behave, whether it is their air defense equipment, or their EW, or their P-15 missiles, or their anti-drone equipment, which was with Iran, everything, all failed. So that material power did not convert into combat power. Okay. Inventories of advanced armaments do not constitute military power. Oh, they have so many missiles, they have so many launchers, they have so many this, so many ships, yeah, whoa. But does it make combat power? It doesn't. We've seen that in Russia. Russia has tremendously n number of times of combat power compared to Ukraine, but still it's fighting a war 3 years later. How well can the PLA fight? That's a question mark. Because they definitely didn't fight well in Kailash ranges. They definitely didn't fight well in Yangtze. They got beaten up and sent back. In Kailash range, they just couldn't maneuver. Yeah, Galwan was a 1-to-1 fight. We lost 20. We don't know how many they lost. In fact, the thing is, they lost double that amount. So, can they really fight? The empirical evidence doesn't suggest so. Then, of course, the important thing PLA has an ambitious joint warfare doctrine and demonstrated competence in non war missions. What are these non war missions? Counter piracy patrols, humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, and United Nations peacekeeping operations. Here I disagree with what he says. He says demonstrated competence. Counter piracy patrols. Where were they when Indian Navy was countering the Somali pirates across the Red Sea or this side of the Red Sea? They didn't do anything. Where were they when the tsunami came in 2004? They were in Shanghai. What humanitarian assistance have they given? They didn't lift a little finger to help Maldives out. They didn't do anything for Bangladesh. Even Bangladesh today probably deserves humanitarian assistance from many points of view. If nothing as a counter to India, has it done anything to help Bangladesh out? No. And their performance in UN peacekeeping operations have been useless. People have run away. They've left weapons and run away. In fact, there's a case, I think, in Congo, where they had to come to the Indian battalion and take shelter. Now, PLA drill suggests some ability to execute joint, some ability, at least in training environment. Training, they're very, everything is shown, propaganda. In this training environment, I will put it as what they've done against Taiwan. Ships going here, missiles firing, aircraft flying, all that is beautiful. It's in a one-sided scenario where the other chap is not firing. What happens? The other chap fires untested. Okay. China has shied away from many combat operations. Mind you, this has been written in 2024, January, not now. We've seen it. It is shied away in Sindoor. It is shied away in Iran-Israel war. It is shied away in Syria. Thrice in the past 8 months, it has shied away from military operations. It doesn't commit its forces. It doesn't even show strength that I'm here and I can make a difference. Okay. Chinese media is replete with withering criticisms of military's inability to execute integrated joint operation and its lack of combat readiness. This will come forth again. It's a matter of time. Okay. What is the purpose of the Chinese military? We have to go back to the first takeaway. It is fundamentally focused on upholding Chinese Communist Party rather than preparing for war. This is a very, very important thing. a military can either prepare for war or it can ensure that everything else is the politically is ready. And this explanation he gives next, which is again very profound. He says militaries are inherently political entities that reflect the priorities and imperatives of the states that they serve. The PLA is a complete political army. Look, every military is a political entity. We serve the state. We serve the politics of the state, but not the intrinsic party politics, but the constitutional politics of India. I'm talking of India. Same thing with, say, a country like Russia, USA, or for that matter, Great Britain. You are tuned to the constitutional politics of the land and you uphold that. Not in the PLA. The PLA, because China doesn't have a constitution, the constitution they uphold is of the CCP. There's a big difference between the two. Now, as China weakens and as the internal politics of China starts fading and where power struggles go on, the PLA will start siding one faction or the other or keep that CCP rule up. It's happening now. Because it's doing that, it is seeming to be weak outside. Whether it is weak or not is a different thing. But a force which is not prepared to even step out and assert itself. And this force is supposed to be that of a superpower. Zero. I mean, you have to understand this major issue about the PLA. Okay. That's what I said. As Zhang Yuxia. What is Zhang Yuxia doing actually today? He's trying to uphold the power of the CCP and uphold his. Maybe he's aiming to become the president and whatever general secretary of the party and all that. Or he'll support one faction or the other. But is the PLA ready to take on international responsibility or defense of the nation at this point of time? Well, that's a doubtful. Right. At this point of time, I'd like to tell everyone, I'd request everyone to kindly, subscribe to Gunner Shot. Press the like button and join in as a member. Because I suddenly find that the subscriptions to Gunner Shot have gone down. I don't know what's the reason. Is YouTube thing or people have just changed? Okay. So we'll get back to what the CCP is all about. Right. Then we'll talk of the Sinocentric world order ambition. It's there. And if you see, Xi Jinping has often said, I'm going to establish a China-centric world order and CCP has to be modern, PLA has to be modern and this and that and world-beating force and all that timelines. We've heard of it, 27, 47, all that nonsense. But is it feasible? Why it's not feasible? We'll read that. He says, in 1980s, historically, Deng Xiaoping declared that China no longer faced the prospect of a major war. He said this. Okay. When Mao died and he came back and he became the general secretary and he became the, whatever he was called. So, he says China doesn't have great enemies left. Minor things, India will take care of it. Okay. In the 2019 Defense Whitepaper, that was the last Defense Whitepaper they brought out was in 2019. After that, for some reason, there's no Defense Whitepaper except the security paper which they came out. White paper on security 2 months back, or 1 month back, but which we discussed. Even in that, they have said we face a benign international environment. Now, when your outlook of your national leaders is that, look, we don't have a real threat, wherever, then your structure, your outlook is also like that. You can't be then a army or an air force or armed force which is going to go expeditionary because you're not structured for it. Till 2019, they were not structured for it. They were only structured for some defense. What defense, we don't know. That's never been spelled out. So here is the paradox. The paradox is China feels or felt there's no major threat to it. And the threat it faces was always, Xi Jinping has spoken of color revolutions. So that means color revolutions means upholding the CCP rule, which means PLA will be more interested in that than any attack. Have you ever seen one thing which says how China will be attacked? Zero. But it has a very powerful military. Right? Are we clear as to how this powerful military will be deployed abroad? Apart from the fact that, okay, they say we'll go to Taiwan and do whatever you have to do. Is there any concept paper of force projection? They can claim they can claim this 9-dash line, 10-dash line, and half of India and all that. But is there a way they say, okay, we want Arunachal is ours? Is there a military plan to it? Never seen it. Is there an end game to how they're going to occupy this 9-dash line in South China Sea? They're still fighting. There's no objective. This is something very funny about any army. If that army doesn't have an objective, you don't know when you're getting into a war and when you're getting out of the war. Either you'll never get into it or you'll never get out of it. Or you get out of it at the wrong time. That's why they say aim in the war, selection and maintenance of aim is very important. That's not there. Because he says Taiwanese independence, international competition, disputes over territory in the first island chain, along the Indian border, and perils in cyberspace and all these, they don't threaten the CCP rule. If these actions, if China is benign and doesn't take any action against all these, and just has this huge army sitting and eating and doing nothing about progressing these matters, then they'll continue. No, it doesn't threaten. The moment this started threatening, say against India, they came against Galwan and showed a hell of a lot. The moment they were outmaneuvered in Kailash, they went back. Then they tried at Yangtze, they couldn't, so they kept quiet. After 3-4 years, they said, yeah, we can't do anything against the Indian army. So they went back at Depsang. Because if they didn't go back, there was adverse comments coming within China. Were you just sitting there for 4 years and you're not been able to push the Indian army back? That was threatening their rule, and they pulled back. Taiwan independence is fine. I mean, you can talk, I'll go across Taiwan and all, but you've not done it so far, and you're not likely to do in a hurry. That's the thing. They say 27 में करेंगे. 27 किसने देखा? If it doesn't go in 27 or 30 also, does it affect the CCP rule? On the other hand, if China goes into any of these places and gets hit, it will affect the CCP rule. Okay. Then, despite relatively low threats to CCP power from external and factional sources, China oversaw an astonishingly rapid and extensive modernization of its military. Why do you modernize a military and make it big when you don't have threats? They've never mentioned a threat. You see, any of the doctrines, there's no threat. But yet they made it big. What is it for? To conquer the world? That's what Xi Jinping's idea is. To have the most biggest military in the world by 2047. Modern military. To do what? To do what? Nothing stated. You're not even stepped out of your first island chain with 3 aircraft carriers. In our case, little Obsindur and our entire naval fleet was out at sea, ready to hit Pakistan. Did these people come to stop India? Did these people come to stop or threaten USA when the US took its 3 carriers there? Why? They were not prepared to fight. Just not prepared to fight in both cases. When you see it in a theoretical construct, many things come up. Very surprisingly, he says from 2000 to 2016, 16 years, the military budget increased by 10%. From 2017 onwards, it's 5 to 7% a year. It is not only this military budget, it is also the budget for internal security which has matched. So every year on armed forces, in some manner or other, China has been spending nearly 15 to 20%, yet without a name. You see how this budget has gone from 22 billion, it's gone to 22 billion in 2003, it's gone to 24, it's gone to 231 billion, 10 times more. Obviously, this was supposed to be for a Sinocentric world order. How do you support that Sinocentric world order? USA is very clear, it's got 108 bases all over. In the Middle East, it had 8 to 10 bases. They vacated all the bases, got onto their ships, got onto their aircraft, wherever, and they started flying. And they from Miami, they came and hit Iran and went back. And then the war finished. Affirmative action. US-led global order still rules. If you have a Sinocentric world ambition, you have such a huge PLA, 231 billion is not a joke. And you do nothing except give a 4-point peace proposal which has no value, no one sees it. This is the PLA which can't fight. And he goes on to say PLA's warfighting capacity accelerated after Xi gained power. Now Xi demanded that PLA be combat ready and develop capacity to fight and win wars. He propelled PLA to make war fighting a top priority. But did he do it to make it ready to fight or preserve his own seat? Now the last point, rapid military modernization has coincided with clear evidence that the PLA remained underprepared for war and focused on upholding CCP rule. Period. That's what is happening today. Xi Jinping wanted, why? He wanted the PLA to look outwards. He wanted to cleanse the PLA and have a non-political role. But it didn't happen. Why it doesn't happen? You have to understand. No army, no entity, no military establishment can suddenly change overnight, right? And become an offensive force. It can't become an offensive force. It can't unless it has directions, political direction. In our case, it's very simple. That look, the Indian army is supposed to defend the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the nation. It has to look after its national interests, which extend from the Gulf of Aden to the Malacca Strait. So you are equipping your navy accordingly. Very clear. You are ensuring that your army, air force, everyone, can defend the borders. And if Pakistan misbehaves, you handle Pakistan. If China misbehaves, you handle China. Okay. But what is the aim for the Chinese PLA? Except that vague thing, we will, it has to be modern and, all that. Does it have to protect BRI? Does it have to enforce GSI, the security initiative, or the development initiative, or the civilizational initiative? Because nowhere is PLA there. So there's a diverse from what their political thought processes is and their military thinking. Now let's look at the commanders, the leadership. The PLA commanders have little or no training or experience operating in a joint environment because they've never been so. And operating in a joint environment doesn't come easily. All their battles have been non-joint operations. The last operation they fought was Vietnam. After that, they've not fought a joint operation. We might not have a theater command, but we know how to fight joint. We fought joint. We carried out joint operations in Bangladesh. Very complicated. We carried out joint operations in Kargil. We carried out joint operations in Opsindur. All three. Have we seen the PLA doing one joint operation so far? Except a drill around Taiwan. That too, in the last drill, they used to go out in the morning and come back at night. And their firing which they did was somewhere else. The video was shown to us as if it's being done on Taiwan. And then there's a fact. He said that shortage of commanders and staff qualified for such operations, a lack of understanding of the capabilities, equipment and tactics of the other services, and a lack of advanced technology to enable communication and information sharing among the services is prevalent. Unless you know the capabilities of the other services, how will you act? But how will you know the capabilities of the other services because you never participated in any? Gets back to the first one. And as far as shortages of commanders and staff is concerned, that has come out in Chinese media. This is a RAND analysis, but it has come out in Chinese media. I have quoted so many times when people have said there are no pilots for their fighters in the Navy. They don't have marine commandos trained. They don't have captains for their ships. You might have the biggest Navy, but if you don't have captains for your ships, what use? If one captain takes the wrong thing, that ship will go down. So you see that they don't have commanders who are experienced at all levels. Plus, if you have purged over 100 generals in the past 5 to 10 years, and just in the past 6 months you have purged half your Central Military Commission, how can you fight? In the Indian Army, you sack one general. I'm not even talking of Air Force and Navy. Just the Indian Army sack one general and the army will get shaken up. Thereafter, every general will say, yeah, why should I fight? How do I fight? Okay. He says, why should I take risk? Here, every day a general is getting sacked as if he's a bloody potato. Then the political will to fight. This is something very important. Many of us feel that China is aggressive. They have the political will to invade everyone and all that. This is where we have to start rethinking. Chinese leaders have shown little interest in starting a war. Absence of a national threat or expeditionary intent or interest. The, only Xi Jinping tried it with India and Galwan, and then after that they have gone back. After that, they have not tried to start a war. In these two operations, they have been on the sidelines. They have not taken one step politically. Even politically, they have not taken a step, which can even be remotely considered as militaristic. The political will to fight is almost missing. For whatever reason. Because unless there's a political will to fight, it does not signal war preparation. Just by going and say you prepare for war, it doesn't mean they'll prepare for war. Preparation for war is not at the unit level. It is at the staff level. It is at the apex headquarter level. It is the headquarters, the chief, the army commanders, or the theater commanders who prepare for war. Preparation for war is not on the day of the war. The preparation for war starts, it's a continuous process. You prepare, your concepts change, you re-prepare, concepts change, technology comes in, that cycle is an ongoing thing. I have not read any paper by any PLA guy who focuses on these issues. Okay. And, next thing, political leaders who believe that war is to be imminent or desirable will demand that the military be combat ready. Yes, Xi Jinping has said that, but who else has backed him up politically? No one. Chinese leaders throughout have not characterized war as inevitable or desirable. It's not only Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping is 5-10 years. Before that also. So if your war is not inevitable and you are only looking inward, then how will you fight? And this is very clear. Chinese leaders have told media not to dwell on the possibility of major war as a possible means of building awareness and support for such a war. They don't talk in the media. And if you see their media discussions and all, even Opsindur, they are more interested in selling their jets than analyzing war. I have not seen a single piece say, look, this war, this is the way India fought. And I read a lot of Chinese articles. This is the way India fought this war. How do we defeat it? I have not seen it in the professional writing. We discuss it. I'm discussing it openly. So will so many others who will say you use AI, you use this, you use that. So many things come out. A lot of discussion, and we are discussing how to fight Pakistan, how to fight China, and all that. I don't see the discussion in Pakistan, China, even in the professional journals. And they come and hype up some. Oh, they came to Tibet and carried out an exercise. What's that exercise? When you analyze that exercise, there's nothing in it. They just come done some firing and gone back or something like that. Anyway, whatever. There are paradoxes. Important. Chinese military journals have theoretical expositions on how military units might conduct strategies, campaigns, and tactics. And these are abstractly formulated. They generally carry oblique references to potential adversaries. It's an inanimate adversary they're talking of. They don't have a strategy for India. They don't have a strategy for USA. Or they say we'll fire carrier killers. Just because you have a carrier killer, you name it a carrier killer, it's not going to go and kill a carrier. And that damn carrier killer has gone ulta. When they fired, it went, they fired from the east coast, it went and fell near Beijing. And that's what General Narayanan said the other day. Oh, that can't be your tactics that just because you have 4 weapons that you will win the war. We've seen it. We've seen it with just because USA had those B2s, it didn't win the war with Iran. They had to put up complex operation for lasting 72 hours using 75 airplanes, 3 refuelings. Very complex. How do you do it? If you are supposed to be a global power, you should have that reach and you should have be doing complex operations. Every time a complex operation could have been carried out, they have not carried it out. And nothing like Op Sindoor and this. Did you hear of one Chinese PLA Navy vessel coming out of Djibouti in this entire story? They said somewhere two naval vessels are hanging around somewhere, eavesdropping on PLA or on America or US Navy or whatever it is. That's it. Where was your fleet? You had destroyers sitting in Djibouti inside. So, then this is the thing. China's military modernization poses a paradox. On one hand, China has invested vast sums of to improve PLA's combat capability. On the other hand, Chinese leaders acknowledge that the country faces a relatively benign external environment, and the PLA's top job remains to uphold CCP rule. Period. You might have 3 carriers. So what if they have not left your first island chain? And if they've left the first island chain, they've gone 60 kilometers, 100 kilometers beyond the first island chain and come back. You don't have an aim to exercise. You will never exercise it. So that political direction is not there. It is lacking. And this military is not professional. And the military is political. This is very interesting. It's interesting because in September, there's going to be a great parade about which even from now itself people are talking. Oh, we're going to have a great parade. We're going to have a great parade. China will showcase everything. PLA is a prize to be showcased as per the Chinese thinking. And he's right. Already the hype is starting about that PLA parade. You'll see that PLA parade. And when it comes, I will again talk of this and that at that time in September. Wait. The PLA hypes patriotic favor, national pride, and defense of the country's interest through deterrence, parades, drills, and exercises through lavish coverage in Chinese media. That's happening. Every time you see the chap marching like this, very smart, everything is tickety boo. Yeah, that doesn't work in war. In war, you saw Kailash Range. Again, I go back to Kailash Range operation. They were outmaneuvered and they didn't know what to do. Why they not practiced it in mountains? And they're not, even now, I don't think they've done it. Now, showcasing modernization achievements in China's technological prowess, such as fielding of aircraft carriers, stealth aircraft, and other technological wonders, also helps nationalistic, patriotic enthusiasm. It's there. If you go into Guancha and Xinhua and all these People's Daily and all, this is rampant. Oh, we have the latest technology. India can't match us. Even today, there is an article by some chap called Mao KG. He says, India's weapons and all are not that good. China's are technologically much better. Oh, bhai, Pakistan ka kya hoga? Your technology, what happened to that? You can say you have better technology. Has it been proven in battle? Are you confident of your technology that it will work in battle? But a lot of talk. Armchair guys who have never seen the bloody front end of a barrel will talk. I have better this thing. And they said, if you remember, before Op Sindoor, I did come out with this thing that there were a couple of articles which said, look, our technology is better with Pakistan, and Pakistan will win and India will lose. That's their pronouncement they did. So what is happening now? Brazil says, please give me your Akash Tir, please give me your weapons. Ye wo. Philippines wants. Everyone is lining up. Which we'll talk tomorrow. We'll talk tomorrow of India's defense exports. No one is talking of Chinese defense exports, no? Is anyone ready to buy Chinese weapons? Even Pakistan has problems about it. Anyway, the military helps bolster popular trust in authorities by saving lives internally. PLA has frequently helped to intervene to help with natural disaster and humanitarian assistance within China, not outside China. Outside China, there's no recorded evidence. Within China, yes, that's it. Muscle flexing demonstrations that do not actually entail combat bolster popular support for the PLA or for the CCP. They do Taiwan drills. They go, oh, we'll go around punishment drills, this, that, ADIC. 20 planes came and crossed the middle line and median line and all that. Oh, big news. What happens one day when the damn chap is shot? That's the day to be seen. Right? Yeah, they have an uncompromising position and they take coercive actions in disputes. In first island chain, India, all that. They're all fine till they're called out. It boosts confidence. Oh, we'll do this against Philippines. Philippines problem in that all those shoals are going on for the past 2 years. Nothing has happened. The Filipinos are still coming with nothing. They have zero in terms of capability compared to China. Yet those chaps are doing what they have to do in all these Second Thomas Shoal and new Sabina Shoal and all that. And then military diplomacy contributes to the party's prestige through highly publicized engagements, port visits, humanitarian assistance, senior leader visits, multilateral training events. They'll come here, do it one with Iran and Pakistan. They'll do with Russia. These training events have value, very limited value. Even in that, they have gone useless. They went and participated in a tank exercise, tank biathlon in Russia, where the really tank sprocket came off, which I showed. Their equipment failed miserably. And then they say, look, you keep the military in training. Training for combat discourages the military from getting involved in domestic politics. Okay, by military go keep him aside. And preparation for combat also helps maintain discipline and control corruption. So the whole story of corruption, training is not for training for purpose to achieve a task, carry out a particular operation, or aim. No, it is to keep these chaps busy so that they are doing training, discipline, and all, and they don't do coups. It's coming apart. And then there's a 3-tier political control. This is very interesting. And this system actually controls how good or bad, or rather how useless their capability is. They have a political commissar. He's a specialist in politics and ideology. He shares equal command authority. We know that with a unit commander. Now, there's a division of command. 2 commanders for 1 unit. How will it work? There are reports in the Chinese media where operational competence of the political commissar has come into question often. So that's the first tier of command. At the unit, there are 2 chaps. And then they have party committees. And this is a second element of political control. The party committees are there right from the Central Military Commission down to platoon level. So whenever anything happens, this party committee is called. Collectively, everyone is taken. First, the unit commander and the commissar will talk. Then the party committee is called. And then there's some, discussion in that. So then some consensual thing will come. So that no one takes a decision. It's all distributed decision making. And this includes combat and non-combat operations. Very simple. In the Indian Army, many times my commanding officers have rang me up, or I, As a battery commander, I have rung up my CO and said, "Sir, what do I do now?" And he says, "Son, do this, do that." When I became a commanding officer, my OP officer once rang me up from some, "So I'm stuck here. I need this help. Done. You do this, this, this." No party committee and all, nothing party baji. Command decision. Period. Oh, I had a case during Op Vijay, an officer who couldn't walk because he had a bad knee. Very simple. He said, "Sir, but I don't want to get out of Op Vijay." I said, "That's the spirit. This is, I want to fight this battle. That's the spirit. You can't walk, but you want to fight. Great." So I made him my anchor OP. You go up, somehow reach that place, give you communication, equip you, because someone had to be there. And a fit guy, I sent him elsewhere. Get to go infiltrate behind. And this guy was there controlling fire. That is decision making. They don't have that. And they have political work departments at all command levels. So that political work department, what does it do? It does propaganda, esprit de corps, indoctrination, and all that. Personal management, culture, security. Oh, yeah, that's the response. In the unit, there's only one guy who does all this. That's the commanding officer. Here you have a political commissar, you have one party committee, you have a public work department. I don't know how they fight. That's why they can't fight. These are the two kinds of militaries he's talking of. Have a look at it fully for 1 minute. In this, politics as priority. In this, combat effectiveness as priority. You see this. See armaments, prestige over non-war utility, combat utility. Or armaments in India might not be the best armaments, but they're the most effective armaments. And I'll talk of it tomorrow. And there's a huge political military disconnect. The leaders know that their PLA can't fight because they've not fought for so long. And this is not new. Hu Jintao, he said they're incompatibles, two incompatibles. He says the modernization level was not consistent or was incompatible with the requirements of modern war. Xi Jinping himself has gone on record not very long back. He says there are inabilities and gaps, and he says there are 5 gaps and 6 inabilities or whatever it is, which I've spoken of. And those inabilities are of his leadership. And what has he done to eradicate them? Nothing. Now, after 20 years of reforms in this century, I'm not talking of last century, right? The leaders like Hu Jintao, Jiang Zemin, and Xi Jinping, who are supposed to come and conquer the world and make a world-class army, they've done nothing to orient this to a combat armed force. Why? Because they need the PLA to, help maintain the party rule. If the PLA has to do that, it can't fight. A PLA which is concerned about coups and insecure about its authority favors a high level of centralization and insists on tight control of military operations. We've seen that. We've seen that in Galwan. PLA organization is optimized for political control, not combat control. You can't fight with committees. A military focused on combat effectiveness might be willing to experiment with arrangements that enhance the flexibility and responsiveness of units to fluid combat situations. But here they're not doing that. Chinese sources, he says in this analysis, admit that they lack competent joint commanders, express uncertainty about how to train personnel to fight as a joint force, and acknowledge that the military reforms remain incomplete. Look, I must tell you about an anecdote of my own. This was when I was a GOC of the artillery division. We had an exercise in our corps, and before that exercise for about 3 days, self and the Air Force commander, TAC commander, he was also equivalent of a major general, a Air Vice Marshal, and I sat down, thrashed out a lot of things. And finally, it came down to certain briefings, and those briefings were being given to the Chief of Army Staff then, and to the AOC&C Western Command, Southwestern Command, SWAC, and my own Army Commander and all, high level. So I gave a particular plan. I said, this is what I want to do. So the my own army commander and my chief were hesitant about that. Now, when I was almost giving up on my whole story, the AOC&C SWAC, he said, sir, just I want to see the slides which he made to support this statement he is making. He told me, he says, I want to see what the GOC article is saying. What is the backup of it? So he said, yeah, I've been briefed by my own TAC commander that they had a discussion yesterday for about a couple of hours, and that he had brought up some interesting things. So yeah, then my chief said, yeah, show it. So I showed. And for the next 2 hours, we were discussing. And then we came out of the joint plan. We were prepared to experiment. We were prepared to expect. The jointness in our system was so high that the AOC&C felt what I was talking was right, and he came up and said, this is the way to do it. Because at that point of time, the RTD with BrahMos, was also a new animal. At that time, the Air Force didn't have BrahMos. Artillery had BrahMos. I was the only chap who had BrahMos in Southern Command. In fact, almost everywhere. So we were new. We were thinking. That forward thinking at that time. Look, I'm talking of 2010, 11. Today it's 13 years back down. I'm so proud that the way the BrahMos was used and the way other was used, from what we were then to now, things have changed. But we were able to do the best. Joint thinking. Vaad Vivad ke saath. Well, that's how it is. That's the difference between the Indian Army and the PLA. Right. So he says, Chinese sources admit they lack competent joint commanders, express uncertainty about how to train personnel to fight as a joint force, and acknowledge that the military reforms remain incomplete. If you're not fought, you don't know what to train for. If you don't know what to train for, if you're not fought, you don't know what the specs for your equipment is supposed to be. If you don't know the specs for your equipment and you have equipment which comes in, you don't know whether you will be able to fight with it, or you have to fight as per the specs of your equipment. That's the problem with the Chinese army. Because they have not fought, they don't know what equipment they want. And the equipment they want doesn't fit tomorrow's battle. All that high-flying thing, comes unstuck in battlefield. And there's the issue of political versus combat training. See, any army or air force or navy which is more worried about political indoctrination cannot fight. If 40% of your time is spent in, that's what this whole story is all about. If 40% of your time is spent in political indoctrination, here he says PLA troopers spend 40% time in political and ideological education. Now let me tell you something very interesting. 4 days back, last week I was in the Army War College on a study. That's when I was off the air for a few days. I went and interacted with the Army War College. I interacted with the Military College of Telecommunication Engineering. I interacted with the Infantry School, all the commandants, top chaps. I still do that. They said, look, and the story was how to get technology into the armed forces more. Basically technology. So I said, do this. He says, sir, how can we do all this? Because it's beyond a person to absorb everything. There's no time. I said, yaar, ye to sahi bol raha hai. Ek aadmi, one man can only do that much. He says, I don't have time. I train him before he comes for a course. I give him pre-course material. After he goes, I give him more material. What can I do? There's a limit. That's the flood of technology which is coming into the battlefield. We are finding it difficult to cope with it. And here is an army which is spending 40% time on political indoctrination. How can they fight? War avoidance. They have refrained from fighting right from 79. They avoid war. They'll not fight. They've avoided war along with us also. They've avoided war. Now they completely avoided war in Op Sindoor and Rising Lion. Right? That's what he says. They left BRI to its own. Whether BRI will work or not, we don't know. What will happen? How will the BRI be protected? They didn't do anything. War avoidance is the order of the day. And their weapons are for prestige. Oh, I have this, I have that. War is not between two weapon systems. War is between two armies, two nations. See, he says a political military favors prestige weapons and weapons with advanced technology to build national pride. We don't do that. They do that. That's why many of you chaps say, sir, China has this, China has that. China has it. What will it do with it? Nothing. Because it's not that. It's something else. A military focused on combat preparations prioritizes prestige weapons less and building ample inventories of weapons and equipment for anticipated combat operations more. That's what we've done. Okay. And very importantly, such a military is also less beholden to interest groups that might demand the production of weapons and equipment for patronage rather than military purposes. Money. So if I have to make a military aircraft carrier, which is more important for prestige than for actual working, there's money involved, patronage involved, weapons for prestige. Okay, that's what he also says in this analysis. Capabilities such as China's counter-intervention system of missile, ships, and aircraft serve deterrence purpose, but could be useful in combat. We don't know whether it will be. Other capabilities such as aircraft carriers have less utility for combat against such adversaries as USA and Taiwan, right? But could be useful for prestige and non-war operations. What's the use of an aircraft carrier for Taiwan? Taiwan is just 200 kilometers away. You don't need an aircraft carrier to take over Taiwan. But can you handle USA? Go out and handle USA with your aircraft carrier, you get smattered. You don't have the capability. Why does China have? China wants to do force projection. Where? There's no bases. You don't have a base. So where will this aircraft carrier come and sit in the Indian Ocean? Economy. Very important. He says, as China's economic situation deteriorates, a desperate Chinese leadership might risk major war to seize Taiwan. Externalizing. Right. And then he says very importantly, China does appear to have entered a trajectory of decline from which it is unlikely to recover. The effect of China's decline will further weaken the PLA. This is happening today. This was written 6 months back. Today the PLA is far more weaker than when this man wrote this. Today morning I spoke to you how weak China is becoming. See, in the last thing which he says, unlike America's great power rivals of the 20th century, such as Imperial Japan, Nazi Germany, and the Soviet Union, all of them were superb militaries. A hostile China would have to fight using a military that is designed not to fight a war. It is not designed to fight a war, nor is it equipped to fight a war. It is Chinese way of war. I know it's going a little over time, but I'll go through with it because this is important. Yes, China has other options that are better suited to its political and military liabilities. One option would be to arm and equip US rivals and enemies, including Iran, North Korea, Russia, and non-violent non-state actors. Precisely what China has done now. He's not spoken of Pakistan, but Pakistan is well on the cards here. Then four PLA forces would play a relatively modest role, primarily as trainers and providers of technical support. Isn't that what PLA has done now in Op Sindoor? They came to train Pakistan army and technical support they gave, which failed. So as China's internal problems worsen, the country will likely face growing incentives to favor indirect methods of contending with the US military in the event tensions escalate into hostilities. Very important. Look, this is speaking in the context of US military, but you just transport US military to Indian military. China will be more indirect. After this experience, even more indirect. And that is what you are seeing. He is more likely to help Pakistan. But then the Pakistan, USA, China, that's a different situation. Let's see how it plays out. China will now instigate Bangladesh. And he started that. We spoke of it yesterday. So the Chinese way of war is something we have to understand. It's not going to be direct, it's going to be indirect. And I've spoken of this indirect war long back with P Gurus. Have a look. Just put indirect war, go to Gunnershot, put indirect war and type. You will get one video of about China, which I did with Mr. Sri Iyer. If you want, I'll replay it tomorrow. So this is it. This is what I wanted to say. The PLA is a beautiful paper tiger. Okay. So, yeah, I know there are PLA bots will be there, CCP bots will be there, but that's okay. I'll take a few questions. I'll not take too many of them. Right. And Shruti, after a long time, says namaskar to you. And yeah, please do subscribe to Gunnershot, press the like button, and all that. And I want more subscriptions. Suddenly, subscriptions are, I don't know what happened. There's a drought of subscriptions. Just imagine the past 24 hours, I just got about 25 people subscribing. That's awful. Yeah. And yeah, Jai Hind, Akash. Yeah, Ustab Har Chaudhary. Yeah, your comment is getting deleted. I see that. Put it in the comment. I'll answer it fully next time. Okay. Hans, good evening. Harshil, hello. Vishwanathan also, namaskaram. Yeah. Yeah, this you have done with Rajiv Narayanan. This is not what I've done with Rajiv Narayanan. How could I have done, Amitesh? This analysis came in January. आप भी तो देख लो यार. What I've done with Rajiv Narayanan is something else. Okay, have a look at it. But this is something else. What I did with Rajiv Narayanan is based on what he wrote. This is what the RAND analysis. Okay, I've connected what RAND analysis has done, written to what is now. And I'll talk with Rajiv also again. Don't worry. Yeah, good evening, Rohan. SH, PLA is not battle hardened. In Galwan, they took a lot of casualties. Yes, lot. Yeah, Rational Buddha, Namaskar, General Saab, Namaskar to you. Yeah, good evening, Krishnamurthy. CLRS, good morning, good evening. How are you? Yeah, but Do you think that China would have handled the same equipment in a better and effective way which were used in Pak and Op Sindur or their weapon systems? No, I don't think so. A lot of handling weapon systems comes from practice and training and the man. I've always said man to man, the Pakistani army soldier is better than the Chinese chap. They might be better equipped, but fighting capability, Pakistani is any day better than the Chinese. Pakistan, the army as a country, in China, a political party as a military, it's more like a mafia. I agree with you completely. Yeah, if after all what I've spoken, you have to ask this question, just think this is a prestige weapon. We don't know how it functions, except on what you've seen on a movie. So take it with a pinch of salt. Yeah, it took a million PLA soldiers and a decade to conquer Tibet. I agree with you. I agree with you. The Tibet consisted of a few thousand soldiers and militia and poorly armed. What does this tell you about PLA? They're useless. Tibetan Hamgai, I completely, endorse what you have said. Have you seen JS Podi? Who's JS Sodhi? I don't even know. Lieutenant Colonel JS Sodhi. Kaun hai yaar ye? On China and PLA with. I have not done all that. I must tell you guys, I don't see videos. Incidentally, I very rarely see others' videos. My gyan is from books. I talk from what I read. And I talk referenced books to you. I get references to you. Have you seen any talk of mine which is not referenced? All my monologues are referenced monologues. I just don't talk of the thing. So, Amitesh, don't come and talk like this. Have you seen that? Have you seen that? I don't even know who this Sodhi is. If I don't know who a chap, any army guy, a Air Force guy, or a Navy guy, if I don't know him, then he's useless. Because if he's good, I would have read his books. As simple as that. If he's not good and he's just talking on the YouTube, then he's talking off of his hat. Yeah. Already subscribed. Thanks a lot, Tarzan. Anjali Martins from Connecticut. Thank you for joining in. Right. Yeah, let me see. Battle readiness and willingness to fight of the Chinese PLA can only be tested on the battlefield. Well, that has not been tested. In fact, whenever it's been tested, they've failed. Right? China has failed to secure even its own energy supply routes in off-pricing line. Can it take on concurrent threats from seasoned forces of Japan, India, Vietnam? No, I don't think so. Same YouTube video mention of nuclear. ये सब बकवास है ये किसको पता है क्या है वहाँ. Good morning, sir. Recently, it was shown that South Korea is increasing birth rate really fast. We'll talk of birth rates later. They can't even face small pirates. I agree with you. I think we should claim China under our one Bodhidharma doctrine. Yeah, we should start something like that. I like that idea. The idea is something good. Yeah, PLA have a demonstrated incompetency in piracy control, humanitarian assistance, and UN peacekeeping operations. Yes, it's recorded. That's the thing. Yeah. China deploys numbers, tactics in air, land, and sea. Intrinsically, they are not brave. Completely agree. I think China has good opportunities in tourism. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, military tourism, they'll do well. They are still instilling ecosystem, submarine detecting ecosystem in the China. Yeah, they're okay. Look, I told you, we'll not underestimate them. They have numbers, there's no doubt. Quality, we don't know. What's the efficacy, we don't know. How they're going to be employed, we don't know. So we should do what we are supposed to do. Our process, in war, the process of going building up to a war is more important than the items of war. And I'll talk to you a little tomorrow about it. When we say why are we able to export items, the importance of having battle tested weapons. We'll talk of it. Tomorrow the talk is im- how India's defense export are going to increase and how we can increase them and what we should do to improve our defense exports and what are the use of all that. We'll talk of that tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Yeah, I'm confident that today, if India and China face a conventional war, the PLA stand no chance at all. They can only fight in small skirmishes. Tibetan fault. I agree with you. I agree with you. You have got the fault lines of PLA, PLF, and PLA Navy split wide open in a simple manner. Thank you. Thanks a lot for that compliment. It's not me, it's Timothy Heath who's done it. I only amplified what he said and related to what's in ground. That's what I said. I'll relate it to what's in ground. And I'm sure this has been an illuminating experience for all of you. Please do share it with all your friends who think that China has a great army so that they know this is 1 hour long. I know it's long, but that's how my style is. I take time to explain everything. And then once you hear me, you should have no doubts. If you have doubts, I'll clarify it. No problems. Okay. Thanks for explaining effects of politicians interfering in armed forces structure. Is there inherent difference in communist thought of USSR and China versus China that makes China's army less assertive? Yes, there is. You see, the communists of USSR were tough guys that time. The communists of that time in China were also tough guys, the Mao variety. These guys are softies. These guys are more interested in making money. That kind of communism was tough. The USSR, this Red Army was very tough. The PLA of that time was very tough. They didn't mind taking casualties. They didn't mind experimenting many things, but not now. That's why I said this history of this PLA, you have to start from Deng, not Mao times. The Mao time fighters are all gone. Yeah, French fry fury. Hello, how are you? You said in the morning, no? Do it in the evening. So here you are. Thank you. Can you say a few words about China peace, UN peacekeeping in South Sudan capital? Look, you know what happened? Let me tell you. Two things happened. One in South China, in South Sudan. One is these chaps went and gave some 300 multi-barrel launchers to the RSF, Revolutionary Sudan Force or something like that. Someone came and attacked them. They left everything. They left the ammunition and ran off. One second in UN in one place. This I know because one of my own boys was there. He came back and said, "साहब ये चाइना वाले तो भाग गए." मैंने कहा क्या हुआ? I said, "What happened?" He said, "Sir, there was some where we were deployed. This chap was part of the battalion there. Where we were deployed a little ahead, the Chinese were deployed, and observers and all that. Some issue happened. This was a mixed contingent. The Chinese ran off. There were 3 Chinese officers who ran and came into the Indian battalion. The other officers from other nations were there. Then our battalion sent a patrol out and extricated those officers. So this is China for us. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you, Vidyasagar, that we lost 62 war only because of our politicians. Okay, now I think generally, so the subscriber reduction might be due to the bot Chinese account unsubscribing as their plan is not working out. Yeah, I agree with you, Geet. I'm not this thing. It's not they're not unsubscribing. I'm not getting new subscriptions. That's the thing. Uh, it's not going up on the right. It'll take a couple of days. It'll go up. Don't worry. Yeah. Thanks for the very interesting and in-depth analysis. Our army is too strong. Why there was hesitation in sharing our might? Only after Op Sindur have changed. No, it's like this, the decade between 2010 to 2015 harmed a lot of us in India. We thought that the PLA was great till the whole thing came unstuck in 2020. 10 to 20, 1 decade we faltered. We faltered psychologically, it's not on ground. And it's only in Galwan when we realized that what we could do, we did. Okay. As focused citizens, how can we contribute to making our nation better? Just work, do your work. Do your work and contribute to the GDP, contribute to the discipline, do what you're supposed to do as a citizen of India. That's enough. Whatever is around you, do well. India will grow. Okay. Yeah, that's it. I think I've done for the day. Thanks a lot for all of you joining in and coming up with some patience, a lot of patience required to listen to 1 hour plus. I hope it was interesting. If it is interesting, do subscribe to the channel, press that like button, and those of you who want to, please join me as members, right? And also, subscribe to Klaus. Klaus is coming out with some great stuff. Okay, I think cerebrally that's very high class. Start looking at it. Okay, with this, till tomorrow, and tomorrow we're going to be having a very interesting discussion on India's defense exports, how to go up and all that, and how things are changing for India, and why we should do what we have to do. We'll talk of all that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Till then, have a great night. Good night and Jai Hind to all of you.